Good evening, everyone. So thank you, everyone, for being here. What a lovely evening, great venue. So thank you to the state of New Mexico, to the governor for allowing us to welcome Sister Cities International here at the governor's mansion. I'd like to also thank, we have a few key supporters this evening, including the City of Santa Fe, Mayor Weber, thank you very much, and Randy Randall as well, thank you so much for your support. Sister Cities of Albuquerque, your team has been incredible. We thank you all for your support, and Mayor Keller as well for the City of Albuquerque support. And I'd also like to give a very special thank you to this evening's sponsor, Ann Murphy Dailey and Bill Dailey. Thank you very much for your support. And thank you, of course, to our chair of our board, Carol Roberts and Lopez. Thank you. Before I introduce our keynote speaker, Mr. William Dailey, Bill Dailey, I'd like to give you a little bit of information about his background. And I'll mention myself, before joining Sister Cities International, I worked in the city of Chicago for the city under Mayor Richard M. Dailey, so I know a lot of Daileys, including but we're very, very happy and pleased to have Mr. William Dailey here this evening. So he was born and raised in the rough and tumble mining town of Butte, Montana. A couple of things to know about a kid like Bill who grew up in Butte. He learned early how to negotiate for all kinds of things, like hanging on to his lunch money, and later in college, seeing his way through to the goal line on the football field. Off the football field, he's had a winning international career which has spanned the globe, having worked in more than 50 countries. And that's quite a lot more than 50. Bill's CV is far too long to summarize this evening, but includes impressive achievements such as his responsibilities for ARCO International's oil and gas operations in Asia, Africa, and the Middle East. Bill received the Distinguished Alumni Award from Montana Tech University. And just to paraphrase Kipling's quote from his famous poem, as I believe this also describes Bill quite well, "You can walk with the crowd and keep your virtue, or walk with kings, nor lose the common touch." In the course of his long and successful international career, Bill has literally walked with kings, negotiated with many governments, developed oil and gas projects in places people thought to be impossible, and yet he remains the rough and tumble guy from Butte, Montana. So I'm honored to introduce this evening our keynote speaker, William W. Dailey.
I know we got a lot of your material.
Thank you very much.
Like everyone, I'm going to make my statements as brief as I possibly can so that everybody can get back to doing what they come here to do. That's to meet other people that they normally don't meet in their day-to-day activities and get to know someone outside of your normal routine. So I will just be quick, and we'll get back to being a receptive. I'd like to say thank you very much to Governor Lou Grisham for inviting us to this most lovely home, and thank you for allowing us to enjoy it in such a beautiful Santa Fe evening. And I want to do another thank you, and that's Carol Roberts and Lopez for all their hard work putting this reception together. Well done. Thank you, Carol. As I've looked at the countries listed in the folk art market, I'm having a hard time saying folk art market. Maybe it's my new background. But as I look through the list of cities and countries that were listed there, I've done business in 29 of them, and I've actually been on the ground in 16. And what we've learned from the sister cities and from New Mexico Tech and from the art market is that there's a common connection with sister cities, international, the art market, diplomats, government officials, academia, and the business community. And that common thread is something that Mayor Weber mentioned early on, and he said building relationships. And that's what it's really all about. And relationship building, it takes time, and it requires an effort. But at the end of the day, all of us here, regardless what we do, we're in the people business. And at the end of the day, that's who we need to learn to work with and establish relationships with that are made in good faith, that are win-win relationships, because those are the only ones that really can stand the test of time and have true value and lasting longevity. Now, what I have learned,
You have to put it a little closer to the mic.
what I have learned, I need to put the microphone a little closer to my mouth. It's just something new every day. You just need to have to pay attention to this. The four elements that I use for building meaningful relationships include what I refer to as the 4 C's. And that's communications, cooperation, coordination, collaboration. And what I'd like to do to help connect the dots on those 4 C's is to tell you of experiences that Ann and I have had in 3 of the countries that we hear about a lot these days: Colombia, Ukraine, and Kazakhstan. In Colombia, Ann and I lived in Bogota for 3 years around the time of the millennium. The National Oil Company asked me for suggestions for a keynote speaker for a petroleum congress that they were going to put together. And at that time, Ann was the chairman of the Board of Regents in New Mexico. And so when I got back from work that day, I started talking to her and I said, we need someone that can bring a little bit extra and not just talk about the normal company business. And fortunately, as we were talking, we both came up with the same name. We thought, Dr. Dan Lopez, the then president of New Mexico, would be a perfect person to come down and speak at the Petroleum Congress in Bogota, Colombia. Dan agreed, and he came down and gave a very, very wonderful speech talking mostly about educating earth scientists, not for the oil business and gas business of today, but what the oil and gas business of the future is going to look like. And his talk was very well received. He got a lot of compliments, and one of the things that we did establish as a result was that Dan was able to establish a relationship between Mexico, Tech, and Colombia, which I think still is alive today. Another thing that was valuable for him when he was there is Dan was an American who had come down to Bogota to this Congress and actually give his speech in classic Spanish. And that was important to the Colombians because they believe that they are the holders, if you will, the saviors of classical Spanish outside of Spain. One other thing that we did while we were there, we became godparents for a young Colombian lady that is now attending college here in the U.S. And that was one of the honors that was bestowed upon us there. Ukraine. God bless the courageous Ukrainians. What a beautiful country they have there. They're fighting for the control of the country in the future, and we wish them well. Ann and I lived in Simferopol down in Crimea for about a year in the late 90s. And we visited Yalta frequently, and if you remember from your history book, Yalta is the place where Mr. Roosevelt, Mr. Churchill, and Premier Stalin got together and decided how World War II would be settled and how they would divide up Europe when World War II was completed. And when you stop and you read a little bit of history about that, you find out that these were the 3 most powerful men in the world. No 2 ways about it. They didn't like one another. They had huge egos, and each one of them had an agenda. But they sat down together in Yalta, in a triple negotiation, 3 parties in the negotiation, which is extremely difficult to accomplish, but they did that. They made compromises where they needed to. They made concessions where they needed to bring that great war to closure. Countless lives and untold national assets were saved as a result of their efforts. Again, communication, coordination, cooperation, and collaboration made world peace a reality that led to the world that we've all known since the end of 1945. Kazakhstan. Ann and I lived in Octavia, a western Kazakhstan city, for 2.5 years. When I got there was a young lady at the company who was serving as a nanny for one of the expats that was there. And she was helping Ann trying to get organized with the furniture and all that we needed to move into our home and activate. And it became pretty obvious this was a very sharp little girl. She was really smart, she worked hard, she was ambitious, and when I got the opportunity, I took and I promoted her to be a translator in our translation group. And before long, she was the #1 technical translator in the company. As we talked to her from time to time, since Ann and I are both petroleum engineers, she said that's what she wanted to do. So we called Dr. Dan again, got hold of him and said, well, what can you do to help us out here? And Dan said, well, we can get something put together for Sia, is her name. And she went to New Mexico Tech. She got her bachelor's degree and her master's degree in 4 years. And she made straight A's all the time. Now, Leroy never said this, I made straight A's all through college as well. My B's were a little crooked, but I made straight A's. Now, one of the other things that we did in Kazakhstan that was favorable to us is that we were asked by one of my colleagues, who he and his wife had just had a baby boy, if Ann and I would serve as godparents. And of course we said yes. And so Ann and I, in addition to a goddaughter in Colombia, we have a godson in Kazakhstan who is a Muslim. And so here you have a Muslim college student, young male. His godfather is an American of Irish German descent and a Catholic. His godmother, also an American, is of Irish and Cornish descent. Now, if we can put something together like that, it would seem that we ought to be able to have a pretty good world coming up at some point in time. To close, what I'd like to do is just say that, as was said a number of times earlier, that people in all walks of life, regardless of what you do, working together in a knowledgeable way, sharing your experiences, are driving force that will collectively make our world a better place to be. Associations such as the Sister Cities and the one we celebrate tonight between New Mexico Tech and Uzbekistan University of Geological Science contribute to the global exchange of ideas and to the understanding of different customs and traditions. It is through this understanding and application of communication, coordination, cooperation, and collaboration that we can help solve the world's problems peacefully for the mutual benefit of all inhabitants of our planet. Thank you so much for your time and your attendance tonight, and please enjoy the reception.
Thank you, Bill. That was just wonderful. Those were